As the sun sets behind us here at Lords on day 2 of England and South Africa, this is the Final Word Daily with Adam Collins and Daniel Norcross for the Advanced Hair Studios, the world leaders in hair restoration. Daniel, as is the custom on this show, tell us all about it in 30 seconds.
England could only add 49 runs in 12, 13, 15 overs, I can't remember, this morning. Ollie Pope top score was 73, but Kagiso Rabada is on the honours board, taking 5 along with Anrik Nortje. They restricted it into just 165. England couldn't make early breakthroughs. Those nuggety left-handed openers, Ervia and Elgar, thwarted them despite the ball darting around all over the place, but they did chip away here and there. Took 7 wickets, sometimes in very eccentric fashion, to some extraordinary fields, more of which you will find out later, but they have a deficit of 120. South Africa are very well on top.
Yeah, 124 to be precise. I can see on the scoreboard helpfully to our right, 289 for 7 at the close of play. Jansen still there on 41 not out, hit a 6 late in the day off Ben Stokes to keep the momentum going. From my vantage point, it looked like South Africa were actually trying to put the foot down at different points today. A brisk partnership of 72 between Jansen and Maharaj late in the day helped with that. But for whatever reason, they just couldn't break the shackles.
No, it was a very strange kind of day because England really allowed them to get away at over 3 and over because of the fields that they set. Now, when I say allowed, England decided to take the positive option at all times.
Yeah.
So at one stage, 148 for 2, South Africa, a deficit of 17. There isn't a single test side in the world of all time that would have continued with 5 slips at that point.
That was when they went to 5 slips, wasn't it?
They went to it. The closer South Africa got to England's total. And that is, if you want to understand what the new regime, what Ben Stokes' captaincy is all about, watch them in the field today, because they were under the pump, frankly, but they were not bowling dry. They did not bowl to 2 slips in a ring field. They did not have a deep third. They didn't have a deep point out immediately when Jack Leach came on. All of those things that we've become used to seeing England do, and in fact all test sides do around the world, none of that was there. It was attack, attack, attack. And actually they were a little bit unlucky. On another day, a lot of balls flew past the outside edge. The openers got squared up quite a few times. And I think Stokes was just thinking, one of these is going to go to slip. And I'm going to be really annoyed if I haven't got a 4th slip. Oh no, make that a 5th there to take the catch. But the result was that without ever really finding any fluency, Sri Lanka's top order were able to keep ticking over because there were gaps in the field everywhere.
Yeah, a comment that you made in our preview came back at one point to me today where you said Bazball means different things to different people. And look, maybe when they're in the field we're seeing another version of this where they feel as though being dry doesn't count. Even late in the day when they did pick up, I think it was the 5th wicket to fall, out goes the field immediately. I mean, it was an unusual day to observe from afar.
It was extraordinary actually because they kept pretty conventional fields for longer, so the ball that they're using is definitely a different batch of balls. It's definitely a better ball. So they weren't just sort of going, at 40 overs we're just going to go into the bumper strategy, but so they kept the 5 slip strategy going for longer. But you would look up on commentary and go, oh crikey, I've got to describe this field because it looks like someone's thrown up on the outfield. I mean, it was just scattergun madness.
Couple of backstops at one point.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would take me a whole ball and a half to describe the field because you had a short, long leg and a long, short leg. You had all these kinds of things going on. And there was no want of invention. What there was full-throated attack the whole time. But today, South Africa undoubtedly got the better of England.
And that came after an opening stand of 85. So you're right. So South Africa broadly do the job this morning, taking the remaining 4 wickets, conceding 49 runs. Rabada, just the 12th South African to go on the honours board here at Lords, taking 5 for 52. But then, especially Elgar looked to be enterprising in the way he played. We think of Elgar as a relatively dour customer, but driving down the ground with panache, with style, especially against Broad.
He did do that a bit, didn't he? I suppose it was a bit of a surprise, but he was encouraged to by the fields that were there. And I think what was disappointing for Stokes was that having set these fields and then encouraged Elgar to play these shots, he didn't quite get the edges. Yeah. And in part that was, I think, a little bit of rustiness for England's bowlers. There's a lot of talk about the schedule in England. And there has been... Yes, apparently.
Right, okay.
It's incredibly boring, isn't it? But I'm afraid it's worth noting that Matthew Potts, when he played his first Test match at this ground, on June the 2nd, and we all wondered what's he really like. He'd come off the back of 5 or 6 county championship matches, and he was grooved, and he was much better than I think a lot of people were expecting. But he came on today, and he did. Alistair Cook said he was thinking of a new podcast called Jaffers and Junk, because Potts did bowl like Jaffers and some junk, and part of that was just the rustiness of having played one red ball game and 200 matches, which is no preparation,
of course,
since the middle of July. And, we're in the middle of, it was early July and now we're in the middle of August.
Yeah, and I think that perhaps the real measure there is that Potts, when we saw him bowl at Headingley a couple of months ago, there was that innings where he bowled like 19 maidens out of 30-odd overs.
Yeah.
It took him until his 14th today.
15th, I think. 15th over before he bowled a maiden, exactly. Which is very unlike him from what we've seen. And, and I have some sympathy with the players for this, because bowlers do need to bowl and get grooved. Now, Anderson was his same parsimonious self, 6 overs for 6 runs. When he did go for some runs to go like 2 and a bit and over, it was because he was bowling with 4 slips and nobody in front of square on the offside. And he was also getting a little bit tired towards the end of the day. But he's a guy who grooves himself and is grooved, whereas Potts is a guy who clearly needs to play some cricket. We saw it actually, exactly the same pattern last year, where with Rory Burns, with batters. It works just well with batters as well as bowlers. Rory Burns came off the back of 6 half centuries at the beginning of last season and looked in great nick against New Zealand, you'll recall. And then when England played India, later on, there'd been no county championship cricket, he was all at sea.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, a structural problem. The England side you will see playing in June, it's packed with red ball players, played a lot of county championship cricket, then they don't get any, and then they turn up a bit rusty. And so Stokes is employing the same plans, doing the same things with players who aren't quite in the same groove.
Yeah, because they did play 4 test matches in 4 weeks on the back of that long run-in with county cricket. That'll be something they have to consider, noting, of course, that there'll be no test cricket in August for the foreseeable future, so they won't be up against this precise challenge. But it'll be similar to this in July when they play Australia next year, albeit a series that starts in June. So, I mean, it's a bit of swings and roundabouts, isn't it?
It is a little bit. I think actually it'll work more in England's favour next year, because they'll have had that county championship build-up, then they've got a test against Ireland, and then they'll play Australia in 5 tests that are being sort of shoehorned into about 6-7 weeks.
Maybe they should play a test against Ireland every year.
Yeah.
Maybe they should use that as the build-up.
Well, and Afghanistan. I'd like to play Afghanistan.
No, absolutely. But given the proximity, I mean, getting Ireland over here or going to Malahide, it would just be like,
Yeah, make it a regular, year-long thing. Yeah.
We stumbled upon something here.
I think we have.
Better than a warm-up game. Better than an intra-club
Where's
warm-up
Warren
game.
Jutram? Warren!
I'm sure Warren would agree. I'm sure Warren listens. We won't need to convince him. It'll be the ECB and others. And, of course, they can slot test matches into the FTP after the fact. That's something else that we know from scheduling in the past. Aidan Markram fell just after tea to Jack Leach. Wanted to talk about him. Started well, bowled from the nursery end. Isn't always the case with Leach here at Lords. Often he bowls kind of counter-cyclically from the pavilion end where the ball wouldn't necessarily get the advantage of the slope, but did go with it here and found a healthy outside edge, nicely taken by folks to remove the dangerous Markham. And Leach did bowl a second spell from the pavilion end before the close of play, but he looks to have flicked the switch. It was when he took 10 wickets in a test match, I suppose, but at the moment, it will help, of course, with his confidence. And he did a lovely interview with Felix White last week as well, where he talked of feeling as though his ceiling is higher than he might have thought it was himself, and he's been convinced of that by the coach Brendan McCullum, by the captain Ben Stokes. It's not just it's not just words. That they have truly instilled some belief in this guy.
Well, I'll tell you saw it in his batting actually as well, because today 15 off 17 balls. This isn't the Jack Leach of 1 off 28 or whatever it was at Headingley. We saw it earlier in the season when he played a lofted drive over mid-off in one test match, a beautiful shot. And actually, I think there's a very strong case that he should be batting at 8. And Broad needs to come down the order, because Broad's still doing what Broad does. His dismissal was rather funny. I might come to that later. But with his bowling, he bowled a little bit slower. I was on air with Phil Tufnell a fair bit today, and he noted that. And when he goes a little bit slower, then obviously gets the chance for the ball to bite and turn. John Norman of TalkSport made an interesting point to me. He said that actually getting the wicket of Keegan Peterson earlier when Jack Leach was about to bowl might have not helped England, because once Peterson was out, Leach was warming up ready to bowl, and actually they delayed bringing him on.
We didn't bowl till the 42nd over, I think.
That's right. Yeah. And had he come on a bit earlier, then he might have got through with that harder ball, might have picked up a couple more wickets early on, because he did turn it a lot when he first started. He lost a bit of the turn later. I wondered if that was just the ball getting a little bit softer, and also
had he bowled earlier, in all probability they would have got got used to the second new ball tonight with the extra half an hour, and
because they're
instead
three
away, and because they fell 6-7 short today.
7, I think it was 6 in the end. Yeah, 6 in the end.
Stuart Broad finishes the day with 1 for 66 from his 17. That included his 100th wicket here at Lords. That was in about his 4th spell. There was some criticism during the rounds early on about how he bowled with the new ball, but certainly his second spell he was more potent. He bowled some really good deliveries, but it feels like at the moment there's always one bowler in a quartet who the pressure is on. And with Ollie Robinson sitting up there in the dressing room as a member of the squad, he's going to have to keep bowling well to keep his spot in the team. It's as simple as that. And that's always the case, but perhaps more acutely now than it would have been a couple of years ago.
Yes, I mean, he's been slightly assisted by the way Potts looked a bit rusty today. And
quite possibly,
so you can also see that because nobody likes to drop anybody in this England outfit, because it's almost like it's the worst thing you can possibly do. It's like, hanging someone's grandmother. What they might be able to, I say hide behind, they're not really a hiding behind kind of group actually. They're very in your face and they do what they want to do, but there are back-to-back test matches here.
Yeah.
And Old Trafford, you could see them saying, right, we're going to rotate. Because back-to-back and then only a week off before the last test.
Right.
So I wouldn't be surprised if one of Potts and Broad makes way for Robinson, who's making his way back from injury and is looking actually a lot fitter. He's looking trimmer and...
dual threat too, Robinson. Saw him, but one of our listeners saw him bowling, who was here today, bowling off breaks throughout the course of the lunch break. I know he bowled off spin at Adelaide with the speed dealer sunglasses on during the Ashes last year. He's not quite going to full Tony Greig yet, but...
No,
there's time if he's good enough.
But I can see him coming in. But you're right. There is a bit of pressure on Broad. But when Broad feels the pressure, he normally comes back with a kind of screw you kind of spell. He may struggle to get one in this test because South Africa being 120 ahead, it's going to require England to bat very well in the second innings to give Broad the runs to bowl with there. But like I say,
3 on the shelf here though.
Yeah, and just one other thing to point out, because I have focused a fair bit on England seamers not having a lot of cricket. We've got to give some raps to the South Africans.
Absolutely,
because that 4-prong pace attack, it's beautiful to watch, apart from anything else. It covers every base. They've had one warm-up game, and most of them didn't play in it, the bowlers. I don't think Nortje played in it. Rabada didn't play in it. Janssen did, but I don't think Ngidi did.
Right.
And Ngidi only bowled 5 overs, incidentally, but the other 3 played really important parts in that bowling lineup, and they were on it from ball 1, and especially Rabada. I mean, he did not bowl a bad ball. Nortje will bowl balls that you can hit for 4, but he also bowled at 94 miles an hour. Rabada was remorseless. I can't really think of a poor ball, let alone a poor over.
Yeah, and
19 overs, out of 45.
Absolutely, and look,
we thought he was injured.
It does feel as though we've got a South African team that's regenerating. We spoke about this in our preview, but they've got new players coming in. We've already talked about Dean Elgar, but an 85-run opening stand. Irvia looks a player. He played 5 years of Surrey Championship cricket. Don't know who it was for, but he played in the championship. He's best mates with Jason Roy. He's 32 years of age, pretty organised, knows how to play in England. Good selection.
Late developer. Yeah. Left-handed late developer. Michael Hussey, anyone?
Yep.
I wonder. He's gritty. He's he's compact. He rode his luck a bit. You've got to ride your luck at Lords because don't make no mistake, this pitch is offering. It's offered not just for the spinners, it's offers for the seamers. There's regular jag. There's been a fair bit of swing because the conditions have really supported it. So it was a big test facing Anderson, Broad, Potts and Stokes on this, and he passed it.
How about Big Marco? He's a cricketer, isn't he?
Is he?
I mean, he's 6'8". I was talking
you
to...
love Marco, don't you?
I'm quite fond of him. I spoke to Derek Pringle about him earlier today. He said people are getting it wrong with him. They think he might be Bruce Reid because of his height, understandably, left arm quick, but his action's more fluent like Brendan Julian, and I quite like that comparison. He's not as slingy as Julian. He's higher up, but he'll probably be more compact as he becomes more experienced. But 6'8", swings it plenty, and...
into the right-handed.
The right-handed.
He's bowled the ball of the match.
Absolutely.
And possibly the most crucial ball in the match because it's getting out Joe Root. And we know how important Joe Root is. If Joe Root had stayed in with Ollie Pope, and let's face it, Ollie Pope made a very well-compiled 73, there's every chance England yesterday are 130 for 2 today, not 116 for 6. So, I mean, that ball was a ripper, and it was very vital in the context of the game.
And a legit option with the bat as well. I mentioned off the top that he's 41 not out overnight. He's only
he was 10 off 40.
Right.
And then at the close, he hit 24 in his next 10 balls.
Yeah, he's 41 from 57 rocks. He hit 16 from a Stokes over, including a big 6 over backward square leg. That stand of 72 with Keshav Maharaj, who didn't bowl, by the way, but again, that's when they set the field back, actually. It was when Maharaj joined Jansen.
Immedially, after having nicked off Verena in the channel. Yeah. So it was like bodyline, wasn't it? Harold! But one of the most extraordinary things about it is, Adam, that when he did the Harold, they all moved into these completely unconventional positions, but they knew exactly where they were going. It wasn't like Stokes going, no, bit more here, bit more there. It's like they have prepared. This is a plan that they absolutely have done time and time again. So, and I kid you not, there was a short, long leg, a long, fine leg, deep backward square, 3 mid-wickets, making a kind of isosceles triangle of mid-wickets. There was a second slip on the boundary, and there was a point. The point was the only person who was even vaguely in front of square, and it was poor old James Anderson, and twice he had to go and fetch the ball because it didn't quite reach the Warner stand. Because the other thing that Marco Jansen and Maharaj did is this wasn't just flailing. When Stokes set this field, they went, oh, you've just given a take of space to the offside.
Exactly.
Push.
Yeah.
There was not a whack, it was push. And, it rolled up towards the boundary, didn't quite get there. It was great stuff.
It feels like they've... there's data that does the rounds, you often see in cricketers, I think, where if you bowl short to tail enders and get it right, it works. Like, that is to say, short bowling that's accurate, the average is better than bowling at the stumps, which is counterintuitive in a way because you would imagine just aiming at the stumps at tail enders is better, but and that must be what underpins this, that on balance, if they get their short bowling right to the lower order, they should be able to clear out the tail quicker. The problem is they don't have anyone running in at 90 mile an hour right now. They don't have Enric Norkia. They don't have Akisa Rabada. They don't have, from their stocks, Mark Wood, Jofra Archer, Ollie Stone.
Anderson didn't do it, did he?
No, that's true.
He was like the sort of the Gubby Allen of this situation. That's the only time I'll ever compare the great James Anderson with the quisling traitor Gubby Allen. I can tell you that for now. But he was a refusenik. So when you've got this crazy field at one end, then Anderson, you look up, 3 slips, gully, extra mid off. That's nice and familiar. I like that. Yeah.
All right, Daniel, that's the day of play. Let's turn our attention to the Final Word Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame for the final word, the most final word moment of the day. For the Advanced Test Studio, the world leaders in hair restoration, advancedteststudio.com/final word. 1 million people across 30 years have used their most useful service. 15% off if you go to that website, advancedhead.com/final word. 100% guarantee. If you're thinking about doing it, get in now. Advanced Test Studio are with us throughout this series, and this is the time to jump on, get your consultation, get your discount. I mean, I know you're doing a good job here of hiding your hair today.
You want to look?
I feel a bit bad at... Well, let's do that.
You're underdressed, mate.
I am underdressed. I mean, today is, of course, Ruth Strauss Day.
Red for Ruth. If you're wondering why I've dressed like this, it's not an aesthetic choice.
No, it's not often I put a hat on when I know I've got to get my beautiful hair out later in the evening, which it will be when we finish this. But Red for Ruth Day, of course, I forgot, which is something I've managed to achieve at Pink Day at the SCG a number of times as well.
You're a serial forgetter.
I'm not doing it on purpose. I just haven't rememred. But you have. You look wonderful in
red
stripes,
red
shoes, red shirt,
red trousers.
So that was a big part of today here at Lord's, as they have for now the 4th year, having Red for Ruth Day.
It meant I couldn't see the ball every time it went up in the air. You try commentating a red ball against the background of everyone wearing red. It's not easy.
Well, early on today there was that comical drop catch, wasn't there, at first slip?
Yes.
Inside the first.
Yes, too much red.
Too much red, that must have been it. So 4 efforts. It was like Mark Taylor of Michael Bevan years ago, but couldn't quite get the ball back into his mitt. That was, it wasn't when Stuart Broad was facing, but Broad's batting was amusing, to say the least. Batting at 8 and drew some criticism. Mark Butcher on telly was just laughing the whole way through whenever Stuart tried to leave the ball, which was infrequently. I suppose with Broad, they've made their mind up that it works for them. They're happy to have him at 8. They'll roll with it while they're rolling with it. Just on Broad, though, I mentioned before, only the second man to take 100 wickets at Lords. Of course, Anderson is the other. You pointed out to me before that only 2 other bowlers have done that at a venue ever.
That's correct. Matara Muralidharan, of course, he's done it in 3 because he's taken 800 wickets and pitches in Sri Lanka were understandably prepared for him.
Yep.
And the man he kept out of the side for many, many years, one of the most underrated left-arm spinners in the history of the game, Rangana Harath. So good, they named him twice.
Well, they both did it at Gaul, where we were doing Final Word Dailies just a couple of weeks ago, and I think Murali's others were at maybe 2 of the Colombo grounds. He played his cricket, and maybe possibly the old ground they had at County, something like that. But yes, so Broad joins that select club, and he's now has 100 out of his 553 wickets, Broad, are at this ground.
Yeah, he and Anderson. I mean, Anderson 117 wickets here, I think. Broad 100. They get to play twice a year here. That's which does help a fair bit. But it's an incredible thing, isn't it? I mean, I remember when I was a kid growing up, if you got 100 Test wickets, then you were sort of in the pantheon for your country. You know, Wisden used to have everybody who got 75 wickets or more for their country. Well, Broad's got 100. Oh, Lords. Yeah. It's kind of silly. It's about his longevity. It's marvellous. But he's my Hall of Fame candidate today because it was just hilarious watching him. Don't bother batting with Ollie Pope at the other end. Swing at everything. Run away to leg as usual. But it was the manner of his dismissal. So Rabada, very clever, bowls like a 70-mile-per-hour slower ball. Broad's not in the same postcode, and just reaches for it and just gently pushes it to a very unconventional position. I mean, Elgar was at a sort of short point, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He wasn't gully. He was like short point.
Yeah. Knew it was coming, maybe.
He knew it was coming, I guess. It was really clever stuff. But it was like, you know, Stewart needs to get out off the bouncer, which he is caught in the boundary with, or the searing Yorker, but not the floaty slower ball. So it was just, isn't cricket marvellous? Got a moment.
Let's enjoy it while we can. He's got Glenn McGrath next, by the way, Broad. I think he's on 5.53. McGrath took 5.61. I think 5.63, 5.61, something like that.
Yeah, so he's
that
not far away.
So in this series, you could overtake Glenn McGrath, as Anderson did at the Oval against India back in 2018. I can see we've been going for more than 20 minutes, which is our cue to finish up and go to the pub. A reminder again, advancedteststudio.com/final word. If you like what Daniel and I do, patreon.com/the final word. Get involved with Nerd Pledge. We're making another version of Storytime, Jeff and I, tomorrow. I'll be doing that from Lords. That'll be in your podcast feeds on Saturday. Can't stop, won't stop. This is the final word. Good night from Lords.
Good night.